Welcome to SteamLUG Cast, Season 3, Episode 21. We are recording this on the evil bad Friday the 13th of November 2015. With me I have Hero.
Hello.
And Namoda.
Hi there.
My name is Derrida. So, let's get starting. What has everybody been playing? What have you been playing, Namoda?
Well, I've been playing some more Ark Survival Evolved. They've added penguins. Hooray! And we played a bit of Don't Starve together. Of course, Guns of Icarus is always good. And we tried Frozen Cortex finally for the first time, and that was interesting. So what have you been playing, Hero?
Well, all of those things, all of them with you. As well as some Arma 3.
How's that shaping up? Is it getting any updates?
They're actually getting a update. The next Windows update will then go into Linux. So, we are getting updates soon. And even if it never updates, I've had so much fun with it. But it still has limitations.
And after that update, except for they're still not doing the anti-cheat, are they?
They haven't confirmed anything about anti-cheat or certain mod compatibility things or the launcher for the game, which is something I'm completely okay with not having.
But other than that, are they committing to the game being fully on Linux after that, except for these feature display?
Not really, no commitment, but having the update will be a big step forward, I think.
Okay. For me, I've been playing some Insurgency and various games for only brief moments to test out my new Steam controller, about which we will be talking in length in just a couple of minutes. Moving on to events. In the last 2 weeks, we had Terraria on the 7th. Before that, we had Left 4 Dead 2 on the 6th. On the 31st, we had a Halloween-themed TF2 event, and on the 30th, we had a Victor Brand event, also a bit Halloween-themed. Did any of you guys manage to attend that, or any of those?
Yeah, I was at the Left 4 Dead 2 event.
And how was it?
It was pretty good.
Was it spooky?
Well, it was Left 4 Dead 2, but we had some PvP, and that's always kind of fun in that game.
Oh, you played PvP?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because we can't, I guess, password the servers, and so we do have a lot of random people, and it's hard to organize to get people into it. But the folks we got in, we had pretty good time playing it.
And how was the Terraria event? I didn't make it.
Yeah, I missed that one.
Okay then. As for upcoming events, right after this cast, we have Worms Clan Wars. We have Broforce tomorrow. On the 20th, we have Insurgency. I'm looking forward to that. Let's play some co-op Insurgency together. And on the 21st, we have a Dota 2 casual event with all these funny new casual game modes they have.
Hooray.
But let's move right on to Steam and Valve news, as this is where the big news have been these last couple of days even. So, multi-packs. Not a multi-pass, because that would be a totally different topic. Somebody told me about them.
So, Steam now allows you to buy gifts of 2-packs, 3-packs, 4-packs, so on the Steam store, which is really exciting. Before you could purchase them,
You could do it.
you could do some tricks, but normally you'd only be able to buy the 4-pack, and then if you already owned the game, then you couldn't. So you would be gifted one to yourself, or one would go into your library and the others would go in your inventory as gifts. Now you can get all the gifts, which is really awesome. You can share the love.
Yeah, they really needed that. And you could do it before by using the website and changing some stuff, but it was really hacky.
It was really not intended functionality.
No.
Now it's part of the Steam store, and that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the past I've had several situations where I was like, I would buy the 4-pack of this if I could buy it as a gift, because I already own the game, and I just want to give it out cheaply to the community or to some friends. And I was like, nope, not if I have to buy everyone individually at the increased price this normally entails.
Yeah, a lot of us, especially like Guns of Icarus, which we play very often, we bought 4-packs when it was on sale, but it wasn't easy. So this will make it nicer. We share it with everybody else who wants to play with us.
Yeah.
So there was a recent interview with Gabe Newell about Steam Machines conducted by Develop Online, and they phrased it a bit poorly in the headline where they said Gabe Newell claimed Steam Machines would be console killers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that title has been very,
misquoted.
It's created some bad reactions and sort of annoying. But the interview is actually fairly interesting, if you just look past that. Gabe Newell talks about how the advantages that he thinks that Steam machines have, and brings up some other things like how Steam was disliked when it was first released,
Very much so.
and still fairly successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope they stick to that same pattern of, hey, what can we improve about this? Why don't people like it? And, if over the next year they fix all the problems people have, I think it'll be successful.
And it may take more than a year, but...
Oh, yeah.
But I find this narrative of, hey, this is how it went in the past, so it's totally going to happen again, a bit stupid.
Yeah.
Because there is no guarantee for anything. Steam was solving a problem, a very real problem.
Yeah, that was much more...
that people had at the time.
More clear.
But it took them a long time to solve that problem. When it first came out, it caused more problems than it solved, so... you can't say it was a golden bullet.
Yeah, indeed, but they pioneered digital distribution with it, which was something everybody was talking about, but they kind of stumbled into it. It was a happy little accident, like Bob Ross would say. And yeah, but the overall attitude was, which I find a bit funny, that Steam machines are at console price points and offer better performance than today's consoles, which is apparently, if you are a billionaire like Gabe Newell, you don't count below the 10,000s anymore, because Steam machines are, in general, not at the same price point as consoles. There's still a considerable markup.
Yeah, they can't match the price to performance yet.
Yeah, they will eventually, especially with that generation. I think when the next iteration of CPUs especially hits at the small processing nodes, and there will be some real competition again in the processor space, the prices will go down even more for much faster hardware.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
But yeah, talking like it would be the case today, I find that a bit unrealistic.
Well, of course, if you include the cost of a lot of the games on the consoles, I mean, most of the PC titles are going to be much, much cheaper than most of those.
That is true, but it sounded more like he was like right on the nose talking about hardware prices, not about total cost of ownership situations. But yeah, overall an interesting interview. Just
look past the headline.
Keep on hating clickbaity headlines, keep your ad blocker primed, don't turn it off for any people like that, and still read the article. That's the most important part. Get the content, do not give them the ad revenue for clickbait. So, let's talk about the big one. At least what we thought would be the big one. On November 10th, the official release of Steam hardware, especially Steam machines, happened. And it seems everybody but Valve remembered that it did. Because, oh my poop burgers, what a giant meh situation that was. There was not really a single big new title released for Linux, although some interesting smaller titles. There was a Steam Machine launch sale, which frankly has some awesome games for a cheap price in them that work on Linux. But some in-between Steam OS sales, just some of their PR before, like the last Steam OS sale was considerably bigger than this one.
Yeah. I sort of expected this. It's pretty obvious from the community reaction that this is not what most people expected.
I feared it.
Yes, too bad, and it got so overshadowed by some other big name releases like Fallout 4 and some other stuff. So it, maybe in the long run it's better given the state of the current hardware and software that it didn't have a huge promotion, but we'll see.
Yeah, that is fascinating. On the 10th, Fallout 2 and Steam machines and SteamOS stuff kind of shared the big banner on the Steam store page. Instead of Valve just...
Yeah, it actually alternated.
Yeah, instead of Valve just saying, okay, you are a big game, but our own shit comes first. Please make room for the Steam machines. Nope. I personally saw Fallout 4 more often than I actually saw Steam machine banners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it actually... You had a chance of getting either the Fallout 4 banner or the Steam hardware banner, but...
Which wouldn't be bad if Fallout 4 ran on SteamOS, but it does not.
There was a small ad on the side that said something about Steam machines, but the big banner alternated, which was interesting.
Yeah, and supposedly, I guess they've contracted with a lot of GameStops to have a section for Steam machines and Steam games, and I went into our local store and didn't see anything at all. All I saw was Fallout 4 everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So A bunch of retail stores have exclusive rights in their area. I know in the US it's GameStop for distributing Steam hardware, and a lot of people reported that there was none available. Many of them said that if you pre-ordered it, you can get some, but otherwise they didn't have any in stock.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well just order it directly from Valve or whichever hardware vendor you want.
I think Amazon also can distribute it in many places, so Valve or Amazon.
LimeDor from GamingOnLinux.com had ordered his at his local game, like the big retailer in the UK.
Right.
And they completely stopped communicating with him, and he basically had no guarantee of that thing even shipping when it was supposed to. So he canceled his pre-order, and luckily some of like a local store clerk still reserved him one of the release ones. So yeah, I ordered mine from Valve directly when the batch was still prone to arrive at the 10th, and it arrived at the 10th, though I didn't manage to be there when the parcel dude arrived, so I had to pick it up one day later. But yeah, I mean, why not get it straight from the horse's mouth instead of these incompetent little console pushers?
Well, I think it's actually probably a good thing to buy at retail stores if you can, just because it gives those store owners a reason to put those boxes on shelves, and that's what's going to really be the advertising for the system.
I think it's also important that they're available in stores, at least for people who are curious to check it out, to see that it's a real thing sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
And then purchase it right there. Not what I would do, but still, I do think that's an important part.
Yeah, but though.
Now, in the long run, maybe it'll be better to order online if they get a little more established, but I just think that, it's going to be sad if they just pull them off shelves because they aren't selling very well.
Yeah, though I don't think these big box retailers are concerned with all that much what you actually want to buy there. I've read stuff about them in the past where they have like incredibly stupid deals with Mad Cats where the stores have to push them really crappy controllers they know are crappy, but because corporate decided this is a deal now, and well, I do not see these retailers, these quasi-monopolists in the game shops, we're ever budging on what they are selling. So
Yeah, it could be.
I think Valve had some agreements with them in place, and did it turn out to be? Like a dry fart in the wind. I'm sorry, but they are better off using their own presence, which is quite huge.
Yeah, I pre-ordered a Steam controller, but not as early, so I won't be getting mine until December. Got it through the Steam store.
But yeah, as far as Steam controllers are concerned, and the Link, these have been selling like hotcakes apparently. The pre-order badges were sold off. You have to wait in line pretty much to get yours. On that part, the Steam hardware sales appear to be a success. At least when we consider these two items.
So you have a Steam controller, right, Rita?
Yes, I do. I have sadly, because of time problems, not managed to play much with it, but I have one really pregnant experience about them, and that is, oh my lordy balls, is it a hassle to set this up on standard desktop Linux. It's a software experience around it, at least on Linux, completely not up to snuff at the moment. So let's start with plugging it in and playing it. For starters, if you didn't know, you have to use Steam Big Picture mode to fully utilize the controller. Even if you have no interest in couch playing, if you want to use this controller, do not config the entire UI for it. It only exists in Steam Big Picture mode.
And even if you configure it beforehand in Steam Big Picture mode, it won't use those presets unless if you launch the game from Big Picture mode.
Indeed. So
you can't just use it as a configuration step. You have to use that all the way through.
I hope they rise up and will use this, will port this over to the standard overlay and just make it work with regular shaped Steam, because the most common way to use a controller on the PC is you just use it as long as the game is actually running and you play it, and after that you go back to keyboard and mouse and control your interface with it. For now, if you want to actually turn off Steam Big Picture and then have the controller turned off without having a timeout on its 15 minutes default timeout, you have to actually press the home button on the controller, turn off the controller first with that, then move over to keyboard and mouse and turn off Big Picture mode, because if you want to turn it off with the controller stays on. And if you turn Big Picture mode off before you turn off the controller, you have to turn Big Picture mode on to turn off the controller.
Interesting.
Does that sound confusing? Because it absolutely is, and it's stupid as hell. I mean, you could always yank the batteries or the cable, but what stupid horse does that?
Well, hopefully that improves.
Now, the other thing is that you have to set up a UDEV rule in order for controller profiles to work properly
Yes,
on most distributions, if not all.
on I think basically all that aren't SteamOS, because even though the Ubuntu guys said, hey, we rolled out this patch for 15.10 and the 14.04 it will come soon after, there is a UDEV rule for the Steam controller, but it is wrong. It doesn't entirely work.
Whoops.
For me, it didn't work in the basic Xbox 360 controller emulation mode the Steam controller also has. So I could play the the keyboard mouse and I guess it was a native mode, but there was no way for me to actually play with the controller presets.
Right, so the UDEV rule basically allows the controller to appear to the game as an actual Xbox 360 controller, or other presets, which means that it should be compatible with
everything.
Any game that supports it, which is basically anything.
Yeah, but
wasn't somebody working on an open driver for the Steam controller? I don't know if they've made any progress yet. But...
the driver, I don't know if you need a specific open driver because of how it works.
There were people working on a user space program.
Yeah.
That would basically do the emulation that the Steam overlay does in big picture mode.
That would be handy.
But I don't think that's really ready yet.
Yeah.
Maybe we could cover that in the future.
Yeah, so even if Valve doesn't, hopefully some other people can figure it out and get it working.
Well, I'm not worried about the UDEV rules not being fixed, it's just that it's not right now.
Yeah, but that wasn't even all. On top of that, that is completely Ubuntu's fault. The proper kernel module for your input wasn't even loading at the operating system start, so you had to add that to your modules, and well, that is not Valve's fault, but moving on to stuff that is Valve's fault, they recently patched Left 4 Dead 2 to support the Steam controller, and they offer their own official preset for the controller, which is completely and utterly unusable. Sensitivities are all over the place. I mean, you have to have perfect pianist muscle controls in your thumbs to not spaz all over the place. So they offer a default preset there that is simply unusable unless, I don't know, you have pencil-shaped fingers that are as accurate as sniper rifles.
So, can you modify a preset that's been put up by the community or one of the recommended or official ones?
Yeah, you can modify them all. You just pick one and then you modify it. So after I tried the official Valve preset, turned down the sensitivity and still thought this is overall not a good preset, I turned over to the community presets. There were some with significant user numbers, so I thought, let's pick that one. And it turns out pretty much all the ones I tried, at least for Left 4 Dead 2, and only for Left 4 Dead 2, they downloaded completely empty. The preset file was empty. Even though this was not a troll attempt by anybody, people were using that. It just wasn't properly downloading or appearing on my system.
So just something was happening in that specific case. That's odd.
Yeah, and I checked with other people. They also had the same problem on Left 4 Dead 2. So I have no idea what's happening there.
Interesting. I wonder if that could have to do with a server outage. So it's temporary, or maybe it was a specific issue. I don't know. Never heard of that one previously.
And then after I was done with Left 4 Dead 2, wanted to try another game, so I quit the game via the overlay function. And then after that, Steam in the big picture mode completely deadlocks.
Hooray!
It just freezes in place, which is apparently, I also double checked with other Steam controller users, that's a problem. People have that happening. At the moment, at least in the Steam beta, the big picture mode sometimes just freezes to death when you quit a game.
Well, I've seen they've been at least updating some of those older games, Portal 2 and Left 4 Dead, so maybe some of that stuff will get fixed before too long.
Yeah, but
Well, I think that Valve has basically updated all their games that they tend to update to have Steam controller support natively. So in that case, it recognizes all the buttons and the touchpads as what they are, as opposed to emulating a mouse and keyboard or a controller.
So after I figured out that deadlock situation, which you just have to live with at the moment until Valve fixes it, there came the next problem, which is sometimes the controller, when you start it until you restart it, it comes up in a mode where it, in irregular intervals, registers key presses double. So double thumbstick moves, double key presses, whatever.
Oh, no.
And unless you turn it off, it just won't fix itself.
Now, have you been using it with Bluetooth or USB?
I have been pretty much exclusively using it with that included USB dongle, which sits squarely in front of me with the extension cord, so connectivity should be perfect, unless the Bluetooth itself is buggered. And yeah, this isn't even like proper Bluetooth recognized by the US. It's a USB dongle that does it for you.
Okay, so it's a proprietary something.
Yeah.
It'll only connect with Steam controllers.
So, but now let's talk about actually using this thing. So, a lot of the complaints I've heard was that it was too different. And about too different I can't tell you, but damn, it is different. I normally do not play first-person shooters with a controller, but I've played quite a bit of Xbox in the past, and at the moment, I'm clunkier with this than I'm with a 360 controller. I'm not saying that's the controller's fault, but it takes some serious getting used to. I don't know if either of you tried some previous iterations of the Steam controller, at some expos or wherever.
No, but I've seen a lot of similar feelings about it that people are saying. I guess maybe it's just because so many people are so ingrained with the 360 or PlayStation controllers that that muscle memory is just too hard to fight.
The dual stick, standard layout for most controllers today, has been there since PS2, PS1.
PS1 was the first to have actual dual stick setups.
So,
and the overall analog stick was around since N64, the single one at least.
Well, yes. So, there's definitely some ingrained habits in that, probably. But whether this is a good way to approach it, the Steam controller, that's hard to say. I've seen a lot of people say that this is the best thing they've ever used, and it's hard to go back to any other type of controller. But I've also seen other people say that they sort of regret the purchase. So maybe it's how open people are to the new concepts, or how much they try to learn it, how much they care.
I've pretty much not played any of the consoles since 1995 or something, so I don't have that muscle memory, and I'm really curious to see how I'll be able to handle it.
So some of the there are some usage patterns that Valve didn't predict people are trying out, like using the gyroscope as precise aiming and using the touchpad for high sensitivity spinning around really quick.
Actually, that is in the Left 4 Dead 2 preset, in the official one.
Well, that's that is really interesting. There's a lot of different use cases that weren't so nobody really thought of those before the hardware was available. Now that it's here, some people are experimenting with a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Obviously, the controller enables you to play mouse-only games and without using a mouse. But for FPSs, there might still be other ways to solve how you play it.
Yeah, I played Half-Life 2 with it a bit. I continued my last save game from my last playthrough where I was in that tunnel with the goo spit all over the place, where you have to use the graph gun to leapfrog around over the goo with two of these cable spools, these wooden cable spools that are lying around.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that was my brain just really being challenged with it, constantly changing from moving around, picking these things up, changing weapons to changing back to graph gun. And then zombies came up and instantly killed me because I was too slow with moving around and shooting, which I normally have no problem with mouse and keyboard. But the accuracy is definitely there, but it takes serious getting used to. One game that positively surprised me, though, was Starbound, which is heavily mouse cursor reliant, where you have to use your entire UI with it, click all over the place and craft. Because it is basically a side-scroller jump-and-run type of game with that on top of it, it controls awesomely well with it, even the mouse pointer portions.
Nice.
You have to normally not be perfectly accurate with it, so it forgives a little bit of my sloppiness. But yeah, that I can see me actually playing this with the controller much more.
Yeah, thinking about it, Starbound does sound like an excellent choice for playing with a Steam controller.
And some games that normally use Xbox 360 controllers, they work well with it, because if you take away that one analog stick, which is easily emulated by the right pad, it's basically a perfect copy of an Xbox 360 controller, at least button-wise, with some extras. So playing Hand of Fate with it proved very easy. Playing Dirt 2 with it, which is the Dirt one we have. I played it for the first.
Dirt Showdown.
Yeah, Dirt Showdown. Playing Dirt Showdown with it was really easy.
What did you think the hardest games were to use with it?
I would still say the flick shooters, the problem this is trying to solve the most, I still had a hard time.
Yeah, okay, like Insurgency would be a good example, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't even try Insurgency with it, because on top of like what a regular shooter does, where you completely turn the camera whenever you turn your weapon, it's one thing. Insurgency has a free aim style with shooting when you're shooting your guns from the hips, which I really didn't want to try with this controller.
Yeah, where the aim point of the gun changes with the small.
Yeah, I don't see myself ever playing many shooters with this. Simply not my force of habit. I'm not in the car.
At least not first-person shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious because, Counter-Strike Go obviously is one of their biggest titles, and if people aren't able to even try it with that would be kind of disappointing.
People are absolutely able to try. I saw a video of a guy doing fairly well in deathmatch and another guy in gun game, where they did that thing Hero talked about, where they used the gyroscope for flick shots and the right thumb pad for regular aiming, and these guys were much better at using this than I am at the moment.
Okay.
But they had it for a longer time, so training solves that, apparently.
It would be great to see how a lot of games that are on consoles have separate multiplayer, if they could link in that multiplayer with the Steam machine and see who can do better. I imagine that people that got used to that controller would have a much better time.
I could potentially see, because of the two methods of aiming with the gyroscope and the touchpad, if you can master this on a high enough sensitivity level, I seriously consider this could be potentially better than a mouse in accuracy.
Wow.
Not me, but some master will pull it off. I can frankly tell you will never be able to be better than a mouse on an Xbox controller, simply because of these acceleration over time with the analog sticks.
Right.
But this is linear direct input mapping. It could be really damn accurate.
That'd be interesting to see.
So, what do you think of the haptic feedback?
It's underwhelming. It doesn't do much for me. I don't know if games are just not using it right, but there's something rattling under the pad, and it's not impressing me much.
Okay.
But yeah, talking a bit about the physical appearance, as you've heard, build quality is excellent. I have heard some crazy people talk about how this feels cheap. I don't know what they are used to. This is definitely a heftier piece of equipment. Also lighter, it just feels heftier and better in the hand than a standard 360 controller, in my opinion. There is not a single spot where this feels cheap or rattly. Some characteristics are that the 4 front buttons are a bit small and close together. My average hands handle them well, but I can definitely understand that some clawed people with big, massive bare hands have problems.
Well, and that's another familiarity thing. If they're used to an Xbox controller that has larger buttons, more spread apart and more convex, then it might feel odd to them.
No, I'm seriously saying, if your thumb is too big, you simply just at all times have too much surface area to press individual buttons without always going for the edge of the button.
It's that close?
It's pretty damn close. They're close and small, and in the heat of gaming, your big thumb might just double tap them.
Interesting.
Well, thankfully,
This is not even being inaccurate. If you go down in the middle of the one button with a too big thumb, you will edge over to another button. There's no avoiding that.
But given how flexible you can make the controller schemes for whatever games, I mean, if that's a problem, you can easily just remap those buttons to be less used.
Yeah, and there is one of the features I really liked a lot, I have thought about in the past a lot. It's the under grip flaps, these 2 flap buttons on the bottom of the controller. They are so unspectacular and simple. They're pretty much just switches under the battery compartment, and the battery cover flips to the sides when you press it. So they work well, they are a simple addition, and I don't understand why not every controller has had this for at least a decade.
And all the bindings can also be set up to have toggles, so you can hold a button and then press another button in order to switch the functionality, right?
Absolutely. You could make this into shift or control or whatever.
Yeah, so the addition of 2 buttons increases the amount of different presses you can do, like crazy. There's just so many more combinations, and those are easily pressed when you're doing just about anything. You can keep your thumb on the thumb pad or the stick and still press those, while also pulling the triggers or the bumpers.
The one complaint I can somewhat understand and subscribe is that the shoulder triggers are a bit short in travel. They are analog triggers with a distinct click at the end with an actual switch under it, but the analog trigger part is short and rather undistinct. So I don't see them being used for a lot of precision acceleration like in racing games as they were used on an Xbox controller.
Right.
In my opinion, these are a bit just simply too short in travel.
I've also heard about the grip paddles, that some people, if they get too excited and they squeeze the grip, they'll accidentally press it. Which I don't know how much of a problem that is, but something to think about.
Yeah, there's no way to grab this without having at least one finger above these flaps, so I can see that happening. I had this happen to me at least once, but not that often afterwards. It's just if you are one of these gamers that always jerks around the controller and gets way into it, you have your gyroscope flipping out on you and you will constantly accidentally press these buttons. So yeah, you need a bit of self-control for this.
So maybe not the best game to play with like Amnesia or Soma.
Well, you could just disable the gyroscope and the
Yeah.
paddles, but it's something. It is a concern of some people. Yeah, I'd imagine. Well, a horror game, even with a mouse, I'll still
Yes, that's true.
spin in circles a few times. It doesn't matter what input device.
Yeah, the thing is, these pads are so sensitive, even on low sensitivities. If you get scared, you will jerk your camera around in place with your thumb twiddles a bit. So keep that in mind.
Same thing with the mouse.
Yeah, but it feels like it's really much more sensitive than a mouse, unless you're really a high sensitivity player.
Or if Hero just freaks out and picks up his mouse and throws it across the room.
Well, picking it up would solve all the problems.
Another thing about one of its physical features is the pretend D-pad shape on the left pad. It's silly and pointless and doesn't do anything to help you actually guide your finger. It's way too nuanced, it's not distinct enough, and it shouldn't be, because then using the pad as an actual pad would be useless. But then again, you still feel it when you want to use a pad as an actual pad, so I don't know. That was a solution to a piece.
Too much of a compromise.
Yeah, that was to compromise, to appease some people that wanted to make this controller something it is not. I have no problem actually clicking the distinct edge zones so it would behave like a D-pad without these cavities being there.
Well, again, maybe it's just kind of a thing for people that might not expect that to work like a D-pad, that it gives them a cue that they can try it that way.
So how about typing? Typing with the two touchpads. Have you tried that?
Yeah, and I suck at it. Yes, I tried. I mean, you have to. This is like as asynchronous as it gets. It's a good system, but to actually master it, you have to.
It's a whole new.
Move your left thumb completely independently from your right thumb, and then use either trigger to click the button. And if you can handle this will be much faster than any old existing typing method for controllers, but it ain't easy. And on top of that, you're not working with an actual absolute cursor, but your position on the keyboard house, on the overlay keyboard house, will always be dependent on where your thumb is on the pad. So if you release your thumb from the pad, it will instantly flip back to the middle. You can't scroll like an actual mouse cursor. You move. You don't constantly reset and move.
So it's completely relative?
Yeah, it's completely relative to your position on the thumb pad, which was throwing me off even more. I expected it to be like a cursor you slide around the place by thumbing over the pads.
Well, in that case, it may be possible for people to get the muscle memory to type even faster. It's just not as easy to learn at first.
Yeah, this is a well thought out system, but the system was thought out by people who have been using prototypes of this controller for quite a while. That is obvious.
Well, the daisy wheel method of input is still available on Steam Big Picture mode. So if you prefer that, you can use the stick to type that way.
I think I'll stick with just plugging in a keyboard if I really need to do a lot of typing.
Well, this is something for people who want to use it exclusively on a TV without a keyboard or a mouse.
Yeah.
One game I want to point out that has one of the most interesting bindings for the controller is the binding of Isaac Rebirth. I played with a controller mapping there where they really completely utilized only the pads pretty much, except for the item usage buttons and bomb buttons and so on. On the left pad you were moving, on the right pad you were constantly firing as soon as you even remotely touched it in the direction you were touching it on. This was an extremely impressively fast and fluent way of playing the game, but it required, again, extreme amounts of control. You had to be perfectly conscious of where you were on the left pad at all times, or you're just running into stuff you weren't planning to run into. But damn, was it fast.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's just one of the things. I mean, the usability of this controller relies completely on actual presets being there or you making your own. And the real potential only is being shown by some of the more extravagant presets out there.
I know a lot of people who got the controllers, the first thing they did was go through like their huge library of games and try to see how it worked. So there are a lot of presets out there. Just how popular the game is would determine how the variety is, how high quality maybe.
Yeah, so definitely interesting. I'm not regretting my purchase, but I want the software side of things to be much more improved, and I need some more time with that baby to know how to caress it just right. So, Hero, you are getting yours, and Namoda, do you have any plans to get one?
Yeah, I'd like to. Hopefully before Christmas. If not, then probably definitely afterwards sometime.
So, the other piece of Steam hardware that has been making the rounds recently for pre-orders and just came out on the 10th is the SteamLUG.
Yeah.
Which I do not have, but I followed a lot of people who got it, and it seems like this is also very appealing to a specific niche of people. I didn't think this would solve the problem for that many people, that many people were interested in streaming their games from their PC to a TV instead of just sitting at the PC itself. But apparently this has rang a bell with a lot of people.
So the SteamLUG is basically a small ARM device with a few USB inputs and uses Steam in-home streaming in order to play on your TV, for those that aren't familiar. And yeah, actually, my dad is interested in getting one. He enjoys playing on a large TV, and that would allow him to do it.
Does he have the horsepower PC to back it up in the background?
Yeah, just doesn't like using it, doesn't like sitting at a desk.
I guess, would he be the person that would be open to play it with the Steam controller, or would he be using like a 360 controller?
He'd be using a Steam controller probably.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of
Now,
people... Continue, please.
I think the biggest shortcoming with the SteamLUG is if you're playing anything online, how do you connect a headset? How do you talk to other people? There's no audio inputs or anything.
Well, a lot of games have that built in. Oh, there isn't at all.
Nope, it has USB ports, which maybe you can use a USB headset, but I'm not sure if that would even work. I'm not sure if that's a functionality that's included.
Right.
So, and maybe it can do any USB forwarding to the desktop, in which case that might work. Or you could use a headset that's plugged into your desktop somehow, depending on how remote it is. But
Well, it doesn't sound impossible to solve. I'm sure they can do it with software if they need to.
yeah, it just seems like something that could potentially cause lots of problems depending on your expectations. But a lot of people have said that as long as if you're using Ethernet, then it's like almost flawless.
Yeah, that about is the same what I heard. And well, if actually my TV was better, I would be considering getting a SteamLUG as well. But then again, my monitors are good enough and I really don't use my TV. So this is for a specific niche, but apparently that niche has been hit and is happy.
Yeah, because this is another case of things being sold out everywhere, similar to the controller, as far as I know.
Now, shall we move on to the big boy release?
Steam machines.
Okay, Steam machines. They released. And apparently I forgot about it, as we said before, and there's really not a whole lot of actual individual opinions out there. There are some sites that have covered Steam machines shortly before release or are just starting to now, and there is a resounding meh out there. The overall opinion I've gotten was, yeah, it's kinda an interesting product, price point is a bit high, but you get better performance, and the library is too damn small.
Yeah, it seems to be the consensus right now.
And I cannot blame them. Ars Technica just did a benchmark between their Steam machine on SteamOS and Windows 10 and pointed out what we know has been true for a long time, that performance of a lot of these ports is simply not up to snuff at all with Windows 10, with significant performance hits.
Yeah, the enthusiasts are always going to point this stuff out, and I think it's important, but I'm way more concerned about, like, if somebody who doesn't know all the details about this kind of stuff just picks up a box, are they happy with it? I mean, that's kind of the end result. And if as long as the games are playable and there's enough games that they're enjoying it, then I think it could still be successful.
Yeah, but still, we have to remember that early on, before Steam machines were a thing, really long before, Valve set out this narrative of we make our own Linux-based operating system that will be really optimized for games and deliver better performance. I know if you were there, you remember these statements.
Yeah.
And if you had a brain in your head, you knew back then already that unless they did a magic number on drivers and really figured out something nobody else had, that was not going to happen. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, sadly, no matter how much the OS is optimized, the ports are sometimes just really poor.
And the API has its limits as well as OpenGL.
Yeah, and they actually have influenced a lot of improvement in drivers for Linux, video drivers. So that is something that we can see that there have been improvements, but that doesn't help anybody else.
Yeah.
As far as somebody who's not, who doesn't really know about the platform and is just picking it up, not as many games, especially not having big titles that they would expect, as well as sometimes little issues like if you're using a preset for a game that uses controller emulation, but the game has a launcher, then you get stuck at the launcher. So little things like that, that's...
Yeah, well, they've been a little better about, removing those games from the Steam store at least.
Yeah, I believe that those no longer show the SteamOS icon, but they can still show up in your library, obviously. You can still download them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this stuff I think can and probably will be sorted out over time.
I agree with that.
The big question is, is the hardware capable? And I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a matter of working out the problems.
Yeah, and a lot of the hardware, I think there's only 3 models of Steam machines that are available right now, and I believe that they have a good price to space, or performance to space, the amount of space that they take up. If you want to put it in an entertainment center, that might be a concern of yours. So, especially the Alienware Steam machine, that uses custom hardware so that it can get into smaller space with more performance, which is interesting. A lot of people don't care so much about that, but there are some actual merits to the hardware.
Yeah, but that was the whole point, having specific hardware for specific needs.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny because, a lot of people will say, oh, well, I could just put together a ATX case and get the, better price performance. And it's like, well, yeah, but do you want to listen to your machine whine while you're in the living room?
And on top of that, if you're already putting together PCs, putting Windows on them, you are already putting Steam on them, and you are already Valve's customer.
Yeah, you're not the target of these in such a case.
Another interesting machine is the Zotac Steam machine SN970, which is so named because it has a 970 in it, which is actually a special version of the 960. They just couldn't name like that, which is a bit strange.
Yeah, the GPU in the Alienware is also custom. They actually, if you look it up, they never say what model it is because it doesn't actually conform to what it is. Like, it has a different clock rate and different bandwidth than the model it's based on. But still interesting. I know that Zantec has a lot of experience with smaller cases and such, so this is not so difficult for them to do.
In my opinion, it's the nicest looking, even though it has a lot of I/O in the front of it. It's still like, here, I'm your console-shaped PC, but I'm totally still a PC. Look at all my ports. Yeah, but there is one vendor who already just jumped off the SteamOS ship. It's Origin, not the EA digital download stuff. It's the hardware vendor Origin you might have seen in some intro splash screens of games. You probably and hopefully have never bought of them because, gosh, are they overpriced. And they ditched SteamOS for their Steam machine, quote unquote. There's an article about it, but as we all know, if you're not shipping your media center sized PC with SteamOS, it's not a Steam machine.
Right, so
it does not have the branding, but again, like when the Alienware Alpha came out with Windows before the Steam machines came out, everybody was saying this Steam machine runs Windows, but it is not a Steam machine.
So there's actually one other interesting thing about the Alienware Steam machine, and that's that it has a HDMI input, so you can use it to route a cable box or something through it to better integrate with your media center. So that's something...
Do they do anything to actually be able to view the cable image, or do you have...
Yeah, in software there's a shortcut for switching the input, something that they added on top of SteamOS. So it's just, I believe it's a button combination on the Steam controller, and then it'll switch between inputs. It'll switch between outputting what the console has, or outputting whatever is on the input.
That is smart on their part, but I think Steam could do a better job of actually offering these ways of doing things directly.
I agree with that. But there's not so much hardware that actually supports HDMI inputs right now. Maybe they will make that improvement in the future.
Well, their one big retailer supports it, so they should get their butts in gear. So yeah, did we forget anything big about the hardware?
I think that covers most of it.
So yeah, then let's move on to tech news. An exciting new feature landed in the new AMD GPU driver for the latest Linux kernel. I believe it will be Linux kernel version 4.5 or so. It's PowerPlay, the power management functionality for newer AMD graphics cards, which means that with AMD GPU, these cards are now able to reclock depending on their workload. Before that, they were stuck even under the highest possible load to their lowest possible clock speed, which means you got absolutely abysmal performance. And Phoronix did some benchmarking, and it's already paying off with incredible performance increases because you're actually using all of your hardware potential now.
Nice.
Yeah, it should make AMD GPU actually usable for gaming for most people if they wanted to try this experimental stuff.
Is that with the open source driver or just proprietary?
It's the open source AMD GPU driver.
Yeah, okay, nice.
Yeah, AMD GPU is the open source kernel module
Yeah, okay.
that is supposed to interface with either the proprietary or open source userland when it gets to that point.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, it's funny to look at that the bit old and not that incredibly fast 295 still beats the Fury. The new fancy second fastest card they have, Fury, because of the state the drivers are in.
Yeah. Well, AMD is making improvements. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, give this a year or so more and this might be really exciting and finally up to snuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And of course, Vulkan may also impact how they perform on Linux in the future.
They better not fail on Vulkan. They invented half of it, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
that would be embarrassing.
Well, a lot will come down to what games properly supported, and we know at least a lot of the big engines will, so that will hopefully mean most of the new titles will.
So,
Well,
general gaming news time. Trine 3 has been released for SteamOS and Linux, and there's a free new level.
Yeah, so actually, when it released, I played through some levels with a friend, and it works fairly well, so that's good. Though, if you're expecting Trine 2 but better, then it's a little different, but still a good port.
Yeah, it's been fairly controversially received on the Windows side of things. People were expecting more of the classic Trine formula, and this is apparently a radical departure. It went fully 3D instead of the old 2.5D stuff. And what's your opinion on it? Do you think it's just different, or different better, different worse?
I would say it's just different. The fully 3D part doesn't bother me at all. I know a lot of people they felt like it departed too much, but the things that bother me more is they took away upgrading your skills to have new abilities, which in some ways that part didn't matter so much in the old Trine games because you could respec at will. You could just change what skills you had, but you still have less abilities now. So other things is that each character is more versatile, which is really cool when you're not playing with 3 people and you're not working together as well. But having it so specialized in the previous games made it so that having it with 3 people that were really coordinated was so rewarding. So I think it's just different, but I can understand why a lot of people were upset by it.
do you think graphically it stands up to its predecessors?
Definitely, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's Trine 2 was so impressive with the graphics.
Yeah.
So Trine 3, it doesn't let down for graphics. It's definitely a beautiful game. It still has the interesting physics interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can you still solve every puzzle by stacking boxes and hookshotting?
Maybe.
Well,
Stacking boxes is an important thing. There are some other things they did that was the versatility stuff, and like everyone can be somewhat effective at combat now, even the wizard. you can just smash boxes down on people and things like that. But everyone can also wall jump now, so it makes everyone much better at moving around. So there's maybe some more variety in the puzzles because of the way that the characters have been changed. There's actually rope physics for the grappling hook. It's not only used for being Spider-Man. You can also like attach things together.
So I might look at this when Try 2 didn't do enough new stuff for me.
Yeah, so certain things like you can open a door by hooking onto it with your grapple, then wrapping the rope around a pole and then attaching it to another grapple point, and then holding the door open so you can walk through.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Is this actually working because of how the physics work, or is it some preset up?
Yeah, that's
basically attached to this point and then attached to this point situation?
No, it's rope physics. It's completely rope physics that does that.
That is nice and intelligent.
So, it's far from perfect, and it definitely is different, but I think it's still interesting.
But maybe also a memo for Frozen By to concern themselves with some new IP now.
Yeah, potentially.
So, Left 4 Dead 2 has been updated specifically for SteamOS and Steam machines with native Steam controller support and surround sound on SteamOS and Linux. We kinda talked about that before, except for maybe the surround sound, but that's an update we have also recently seen in Dota 2 with the Source 2 update and in CSGO on Source 1 still. So yeah, it's nice that they finally realize you actually can do surround on Linux.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see them continuing to update older games.
Which is a very Valve-y thing to do, but still nice.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Left 4 Dead 2 is still the newest game in that particular series.
True.
So, the Rocket League port is almost ready. They mentioned in a Reddit comment that the port could be out any day, but they can't make any promises. It even briefly showed up with the SteamOS icon on the Steam store, but was then quickly removed. They do not have any depots on that we can see, so we can't try to track their progress or anything, and see when they're updating. But that's really exciting because Rocket League was part of the pre-order deal if you got any Steam hardware. So I know there's lots of Linux users that are waiting to play this.
Indeed, I just recently realized that I already have it in my library. I kinda thought I would get it as a gift and then had to manually add it, but if you don't already own it, it goes straight into your own library. So, yay. Nice game to play. Apparently, this really blew up for some reason. It's insanely popular.
Yeah, I believe it was included for free in the, in PS Plus. It was, if you were subscribed to PS Plus on PlayStation, then you got it as part of their monthly deals. And so a lot of people started playing it and streaming it, and it really blew up in popularity. It's also interesting because it's, as far as I know, the only current generation console game that works playing with PC players.
Oh, it has crossplay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes a lot of sense.
Though I've also heard it's not perfect, but it's there. It works.
Yeah, as long as it's not a shooter and console players get hideously owned and pummeled into the ground, I guess you can do it. So, Nordic Games has answered a question about the Darksiders 1 and 2 ports, which have been announced quite a while ago. And the ultimate answer is, well, Darksiders 1 is basically done, but they haven't had the time recently, and Darksiders 2, now that there has been a remake announced, will probably arrive as remake only and not as an original version, which is a sensible move in my opinion.
Yeah, this was rumored for a really long time, and then the person who was porting it was no longer working with them, so it's been a gray area for everybody since then. So it's nice to see that they are still planning on releasing it for Linux users.
This is a game that screams controller play. But yeah, still want to get those. Let's hope they release them before I'm old and grey and withered away.
Or at least before Half-Life 3.
It's the same. So, a very popular survival early access game, The Long Dark, has been released for Linux. Before you hear survival and early access and shy away into your corner of indifference for that genre that has been overly present in recent months or years even, This one is a bit special because you are not running away from zombies, you are not fighting naked cavemen, other players who want to steal your stick. You are actually just surviving against nature itself and the hazards it throws at you in some icy wastelands. Personally,
It also has a really beautiful aesthetic, in my opinion.
yeah, and personally, this is the most appealing survival game that has been brought to my attention recently. Already like the pure survival aspects of Neo Scavenger, which is a fairly different game, a completely different game, honestly, but this is what my idea of a survival game is, where nature itself throws the challenges at you, at least for the most part, because that's actually how this works. Not that I really want to go out and survive in the mountains for a year on my own, but if I can do it in a video game, why not?
Yeah, it looks nice. I'm still more partial to multiplayer games than single player, but for the aesthetics, I think it's worth checking out.
You are the naked caveman that steals the biggest sticks, aren't you?
No, I mostly play PvE, but it's still fun to, look at other people's creations and how they survive and all that.
Then destroy them.
Maybe. If they're hero.
Backstabber.
So, the free and open source game engine Godot is now a member of the Software Freedom Conservancy.
Yeah, so this is really exciting news.
Yeah, this is important because, in my opinion, we need our tools to be free software. As much as you do not give a fart about non-free games, because they are games, I think tools are important to be out there free. And this is one step in the right direction to help sustain Godot. Because Software Freedom Conservancy is about directing funds to these projects and keeping them in a non-profit organization without them having to bother with it themselves. It's a formal non-profit in the United States with all the paperwork that entails. I don't know, how do you call them over there?
It's a specific legal entity of some sort. I forgot the name also. But anyway, it is a legal nonprofit and it can help with funding. So this is really exciting. I think it's a step forward for the Godot engine.
Yeah.
And it'll help ensure that it continues to live on.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally already donated $50 to them on Godot's own website. There's a donate button at the bottom, which over Software Freedom Conservancy now makes a targeted donation to just this project. Because it's my strong belief that if we cannot keep free software afloat, we deserve jack poop in a box. But yeah, Software Freedom Conservancy hosts some very interesting members like Git, Inkscape, Mercurial, PyPy, Kimu, Samba, and Ryan, which you might have heard about. So yeah, it's not your...
Yeah, those are basically all really common and useful projects.
Yeah, you have used some projects which are covered by the Software Freedom Conservancy before, and you've probably enjoyed these projects. So yeah, overall, a total and absolute positive. And please donate, please.
Yes, please. So, Grow Home was also released. This is a smaller game published by
Ubisoft.
What's that company called? Yeah, Ubisoft, that's it. Published by Ubisoft. And so, running around as a robot, trying to grow plants and climb up them to get to places and do things. And it's really different, but interesting looking. So, sort of a 3D, not really platformer, with growing plants to help you progress, and procedural animation.
It has a very interesting and distinct art style.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see stuff like that come out. Not a rehash of everything else that's been done, but some new interesting idea.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe exactly how it looks and plays. It's very different in so many ways.
So we've also got 7 Days to Die Alpha 13 should be out in another week or two. I'm really excited for that. It's interesting, most games, once they are in early access, they start to get a lot of feedback from the community, and they get scared to change things because they think, people aren't going to like this, and they don't want to lose their community. But I'm really impressed that 7 Days to Die has basically gutted so much of their game and rewritten it and changed all the graphics and changed all the skill layouts and menus and everything, and just not scared to make the game that they really want to make. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Dang, early access survival games.
It seems like it has really evolved from the genre of Minecraft, but
yeah,
to a bit more than that.
Yeah, it's certainly expanded on it quite a bit.
But they have a really silly, cliche-looking zombie nurse, which is a deterrent from any potential joy I could have with this game.
Well, like I said, they're changing out most of the graphics, and I think all that stuff's been replaced or will be replaced.
Yeah, it definitely looks quite different in the screenshot in the news post on their Tumblr page. It's still the same game, you still recognize it, but there is a lot, let's say, a more refined and mature art style in it.
Yeah.
Like, gone with the placeholder art, in with the actually feasible and decent looking art. So, moving on to crowdfunding news. We have 2 games we want to talk to you about. Namoda, tell me about Failsafe.
I didn't add that. I added Black Sea Odyssey. That's the only one that I was looking at.
And tell me about that one.
Black Sea Odyssey, I just happened to catch it on the indie gaming subreddit, and they made some crazy claims about what kind of games it would be like, but I took a look at it, and it actually looks like they put some decent work into it. Just still kind of a top-down shoot-'em-up game, but it takes some of the cool things from console games that have the enemies, large, massive enemies that can be kind of picked away at, and it just overall kind of looked like a fun game. And they do have a playable demo. I had some issues with the controller support with it, but at least it does work in Linux, and seems like they've got a good start for it.
So yeah, since I guess nobody of us added Failsafe, we will simply not talk about it. If you care for it, here's a link.
So,
It was probably Corbin's idea.
I don't know so much about Failsafe, but it is a parkour game that might be 2D and definitely promises Linux support from the start. So, at least there's that.
Looks fairly 3D here.
It's hard to say. I haven't watched the gameplay video, but okay. There's 3D scenes and 2D concepts, so maybe it is 3D. Anyway, it's a parkour game with Linux support.
Not quite Mirror's Edge, but hey, it's kind of cool.
That means it won't get horribly violated by EA if it turns out to be good. Which is a net positive.
Well, it doesn't look it's nothing like Mirror's Edge. It looks like, if anything, it will be third person. It's probably on this page somewhere.
And to be fair, we already have the bestest parkour game out there, which just happens to have some zombies, which is Dying Light.
Yeah.
No, it's still great to see Kickstarter still thriving, even though people keep saying that the peak has come and people aren't going to back them anymore. But they're still getting backed, and people are still excited to see new stuff come out.
So it is first-person parkour and has some concept of open world. Not sure if it truly is. It also has grappling hooks. So that looks interesting. If you crave some parkour now, I do think you should play Dying Light.
Now that it actually runs properly on Linux. Took them a while, but I guess they got there.
It's been running fine for a while, though.
Yeah.
So, I guess we are wrapping this up now. If you have any kind of feedback for us, we have an email address, cast@steamlug.org. Also, our IRC channel on Freenode, #SteamLUG. On Twitter, we are @SteamLUG. On Google+, we are +SteamLUG. And on YouTube, we are the channel SteamLUG.
SteamLUG!
This has been SteamLUG Cast. Thanks everybody for listening in.
Stick around for some Worms Clan Wars, and see you guys next cast.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Now,
So
what
what do you
did
think
you
the
think of
hardest
the
games are?
What? One at a time, please.
Sorry.
trying through? Nah.